Hello, my people. It's your Negro with APTitude and host of the BLACKboard, Mickee Lee. Today, I'm making the third installment of 60 Life Lessons at 60. Today's lesson is going to be called Be the You You Want to Be as Soon as Possible. Did you guys know that about 125 years ago, around the turn of last century, so around 1900, the average life expectancy in the United States was about 47? Now, it was probably significantly less in other places that didn't have quite as much development around that time. 1900, the United States was beginning to go through another stage of development in the Industrial Revolution. So there was quite a bit of technological advancements that were made at that time, also medical advancements, scientific advancements. The average person was able to get to widen their diet a little bit, although I would bet that since most people were agricultural still around the 1900s, people probably ate a lot better quality food than we eat today. That said, they also tended to die of ailments that today we pretty much just take a pill for, or we ride it out for a few days and we're good to go. So around the turn of the century, around 1900, the average age in the United States was about 47 years old. Now today, the average age in the United States is well over 75, 6, 7, 78, somewhere in there. The average age is about 78 years. Now, the reason I bring this up to you is because, as I said, today's third lesson in the series, 60 Life Lessons at 60, is called Be the You You Want to Be as Soon as You Can. Now, we're in Black History Month, which I want to be specific. We're talking about ADOS History Month, American Descendants of Slaves, or the formerly enslaved History Month. And one of the great luminaries that is often debated at this time is Martin Luther King Jr. Now, Martin Luther King Jr. was an extraordinarily gifted person. I think the vast majority of the world can agree with that. Not only an extraordinarily gifted orator, but he was able to remember details and remembered information about a wide variety of world events. He also had graduated college at somewhere around 15 or 16 years old. Let that sink in. While most of us are, getting ready to maybe go to our first dance, or getting ready to, have our first boyfriend or girlfriend, or we're worried about being on the high school football or cheerleading, if that's your thing. Martin Luther King Jr. was graduating from high school. He got his bachelor's degree by the age of like 20, 21. And by the time he was 22 or 23, he had earned a doctorate. So this person, although he didn't appear to know from the documentaries that I've seen on his life and some of the materials that I've read, both from him himself and from other people, he had no idea, of course, that he would become Martin Luther King Jr. and that he would be a global icon. He was like everyone else, and he had things that he disliked about himself. Many people don't know that he apparently didn't like the way he looked. He didn't think that he was handsome. I've always thought that he was one of the most handsome men that I've ever seen in my life. He was a little short-statured, probably about 5'6", 5'7". That still is the average height for most men is around 5'9", 5'10". So He wasn't really short, but he thought he should be taller. you know. There are other things that he didn't particularly care for about himself. But he was able to achieve so many things at such a young age. And you do remember that he was taken from us all too soon at the age of only 39. Now, you think about the average 39-year-old these days, and most of us, and that was me at 39 as well, especially if you don't have children, are really just starting to try and get it together and figure it out and nail it down. But he had already been chosen to lead a movement that had been going on for quite a bit of time before he ever arrived in Alabama. He was requested for that role. And then just as a regular person, again, to achieve your doctorate around the age of 21, 22. And then he, was married, I think, by 26. So all of his married life pretty much, and the vast majority of his adult life, was not spent on his own interest at all, but he was pushed into a leadership role. So, in the study of such an iconic life, and then comparing it with my own life, where at that same age, 20, let's just say 26, I had managed to graduate from college, but my intentions at the time were towards the entertainment field. I was a singer at the time, and I was mixing R&B music and Latin music long before J-Lo or any of these other people came about. That's what I was doing, but nobody really understood what I was trying to achieve at that time. Anyway, by the time Dr. King was taken from us at 39, I was still sort of just, I would say floating, unfortunately, I would say floating. And had some idea. I mean, I did everything I was supposed to do. I had been moved out on my own since I was 18 years old and paying my own rent and my own way since I was 18. But despite my excellent education that I acquired from my parents and having a lot of skills and things like that, I still hadn't quite zeroed in on what I wanted to be, quote unquote, when I grew up. So that has had lasting ramifications, and some of which I talked about in the very first video, which 60 means I don't give a damn. So there are things that I'm trying to catch up on that other people achieved by the age of 30. And these things are very important in the way that I see myself. I don't want this video to be too long, but again, like I said, contrasting the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., where he was very focused, and again, he was pushed in a certain direction. And thankfully for all of us, there are people out there that disparage his memory and disparage his character and all kinds of different things. And these people have yet to achieve one fingernail full of what he has achieved. But the point that I'm making with him, with say someone like Michael Jackson, that's in entertainment, someone like Beyonce in entertainment, someone like Tupac in entertainment, they knew what they wanted to be very, very early on. And they shifted and shaped their entire lives to do that. Now, in Martin Luther King Jr.'s case, other people had ideas for his life, and they pushed him into that role, and he was willing to make the sacrifice and to do those things. So my advice, if I could give advice to my younger self, and am giving advice to younger people right now, I would say be who you want to be as soon as possible. One of the things that I've noticed is that with us being given far more time to live. Again, the average life expectancy is now around 77, 78 years old in the United States when it used to be 47. Well, back then, people were marrying a lot earlier, around 15, 16, even 14 years old. A 20-year-old had accomplished a world of life already, and it was a far more mature 20 than what we see today. 25 was almost considered old, certainly getting to middle age. And by the time you were 40, you were beginning to start to wrap things up, unless, of course, you were in one of the upper class levels, So living less time made people far more focused, made people pursue, I would say, the fundamentals of life, and made people accomplish those fundamentals a lot earlier. Whereas now we have far more time to explore. And that leads to a rather cushy lifestyle, and the maturity levels at, let's say, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45 are not what they were even 4 or 5 decades ago. So I would say, since it took me well into my late 40s, early 50s, with the launch of this business, to really get a clear understanding of what I wanted to do. Well, yes. Well, I would say in my younger life, I had wanted to be a successful entertainer, and I managed to do some successful things, but it's not how I made my living. Now, having a clear understanding of how I want my business to operate, having founded a business 8 years ago that is how I pay my bills, how I live off my business, and now having a clear roadmap of how I want that business to show up in the world, how I want to utilize it for activism, how I want to utilize it for not only commercial exploitation, and to achieve some of the what would you say, material achievements that I want, but also, again, how to utilize it for activism and community building. Now that I finally have that clear roadmap, I'll tell you, it feels like I am trying to race the clock, so to speak. So, in this lesson number 3, be who you want to be as soon as possible, as soon as you possibly can. That's what I would tell my younger self, and that's what I'm telling any of you that are listening. Now, in lesson number 2, I said you can teach an old dog new tricks. So how do you become who you want to be as soon as possible, even if you're an old dog learning new tricks? Well, a lot of the advice out there has to do with, honing in on your strengths. There's a guy named Peter Drucker that apparently has written a lot of management books and leadership books, and he advises people not to waste time on their weaknesses. So things that you may like, but you're not particularly good at, don't waste time on those things. The things that really drive you, that really elicit from you a passion, the things that you are very excited to pursue and that make you feel positive, even though you may be tired and annoyed sometimes, but you still overall view that with a great deal of passion, a great deal of positivity, a great deal of desire to see that career path or those goals accomplished. That's what you need to focus on, and especially identifying early on what your particular strengths are. And then if you are still undecided about a particular career path, at least pursue the avenues that your strengths open up to you. So, for example, if you're a really good communicator, well, these days, of course, you can utilize social media and do a lot of that. You can become a paid speaker, for example. You might become a copywriter You might become a speechwriter. You might work in advertisement or marketing to help businesses communicate who they are and what their unique offering is in the marketplace. That's just an example. If you're extremely organized, perhaps you will decide to pursue being an executive assistant or that field. There's a wide area in that field. If you like hanging around seniors and you really enjoy olders and elders, again, there's a huge amount of need for healthcare givers, just companions, people that can be trusted through the court system to help these people take care of their assets and things. So again, there's a wide variety of things you can do just with that alone. But I advise you to become whoever it is or whatever it is that you want to be as soon as possible for a few reasons. Number one, it will change your outlook of yourself. You won't have a tape running in your head that makes you feel that you are living below your talents and your expectations for yourself, and sometimes other people's expectations for yourself. You also will tend to acquire and achieve the fundamentals of life, right? So, a career, a companion, perhaps children, you will acquire these things a lot earlier. And then finally, it leads to an overall satisfaction with yourself, much earlier on, that allows you, I think, to be helpful to other people that are just starting out. So I hope this has been encouraging to you. If you are a person that's older in life and you still have not quite figured out what you want to be, there are a number of success stories, and you hear about Colonel Sanders, who actually didn't start Kentucky Fried Chicken in the form that we know it now, I think, until he was about 60 years old or early 60s, and it became a wild success. And there are other people out there that, didn't fully blossom until their older years and even their elder years. So, be encouraged that you can become the you want to be at any age. It just takes focus, and it takes knowing yourself, and it takes really to hone in on your strengths, which I agree with, rather than focusing on your weaknesses. Of course, the younger you are when you achieve this, the better for you. you know. So I want to encourage you, lesson number 3 from 60 life lessons at 60, be who you want to be as soon as possible. Like, share, and please subscribe if you like the content of this channel. I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. This is your Negro with APTitude, Mickee Lee, and host of the Blackboard, Mickee Lee, signing off.